All right, let's talk about friction. The essential question you should be writing down is, what do all of the types of friction have in common? So let's say, for example, this box that wants to move to the right. I don't know, maybe it's got family over there. So it's trying to go to the right, but friction is going to be pushing it to the left. Friction is a force that acts in an opposite direction to movement. I like this line from Saturday Night Live. Summer Olympics are a grand spectacle of sport, but the Winter Olympics is just 48 different kinds of sliding. Low friction right there. That's what we'll be talking about in just a second. So friction is a force that, of course, we measure in newtons that does three things. It opposes motion in objects that touch as they try to move past each other. So here you have a guy like rubbing his hands right there. There is friction between his hands because that friction is the force that opposes motion because those objects are touching and they are trying to move past each other. Friction happens there. So let's talk about the first time, static friction. Static friction opposes motion on objects that are not moving. Now you're probably thinking, how can there be friction if they're not moving? Well, let's give an example of high static friction. Think of like shoes, or obviously that's not the way Spider-Man works, but let's go with the idea there. A good shoe is one that has really high static friction. As it touches the ground, it does not move. You want that thing to just hit the ground and not move. You don't want it to slide past each other. You have high static friction. The objects don't move and they don't want to. Here we have really high static friction between rubber and a road, and there's actually not moving, even though the tire itself is moving, but between the rubber and the road, it should not be moving. That's because rubber has very high static friction. Low static friction, and I want you to put this in a second column, so you have high static friction on the left, low static friction on the right. Low static friction is where you have no grip or you have no traction, so things just slip. You know, when you're slipping and falling, that's because your shoe and the ground are moving, and you don't want them to be moving. You want your shoe to hit the ground and not move. Here we have someone slipping and falling on a floor that's wet because there's low static friction. When that shoe hits the ground, it shouldn't move, but it does. Here you can see that person slipping and falling. That is low static friction. Here we have Elsa from Frozen, who is freezing the ground, causing low static friction. As their feet touch the ground, they are moving when every time you step down, you don't want them to move. So all these are examples of low static friction. The people can't get a grip, and that one is just, well, mean. And I like watching people get injured on the internet. Good times. Anyways, sliding friction is our second one here. This is what opposes motion on objects that are sliding past each other. Let's look at high sliding friction. High sliding friction is no sliding, immediate stopping. Imagine doing a slip and slide on dry pavement. Ow! But basically you'd hit the ground and you wouldn't move. It just stops right away. That's high sliding friction. Imagine trying to hitting a hockey puck on grass. It wouldn't really go very far. Low sliding friction, on the other hand, is where things just keep on sliding and sliding and sliding. Like with hockey, you can just hit that puck, and because of that low sliding friction, it just keeps on going. So here we have someone who's sliding and hits that. I like that one. He's sliding because of the slow sliding friction of the ice, and that guy smashes into it because low sliding friction there. Here's someone who's trying to do that on wet pavement with a kid's car. I love the moment when you can tell that he's starting to panic, like, oh crap, like right there, he's just starting to panic. That is low sliding friction. Here's a goat who's exploiting low sliding friction to just keep on going. That wouldn't work so well if it was just dirt. That goat would just hit the ground. Let's talk about a third kind, fluid friction. Fluid friction is what opposes motion when you're moving through a fluid. And yes, air is a fluid. Think of high fluid friction as like shooting a gun underwater. Now, obviously in air, that bullet keeps going, but the water is going to slow it down significantly. Watch the bullet. There's the bullet right here. It only goes a couple feet. Not because it hit a brick wall or anything, but because that water slowed it down so much. High fluid friction. Movement stops very quickly in high fluid friction. Here's another example. Don't go around firing guns underwater. People are professionals, or at least they have really expensive cameras. But anyway, there you can see that bullet is being slowed down significantly by the high fluid friction of the water. Check out this link right here, firing an AK-47 underwater. Just really cool to see high fluid friction. Low fluid friction would be the exact opposite. Objects would continue moving unaffected by friction. Things in space would be like this. When you're in space, there is no air, so there's essentially nothing to slow anything down. So low fluid friction just keeps on going and going and going and going. That's why we've launched a couple spacecraft back in the 70s that are still going, even though the rockets haven't fired on them in 40 plus years. All right, last time, let's talk about rolling friction. This is something that opposes motion on objects rolling over a surface. High rolling friction would be where a rolling object stops right away. You know, if you just tried to throw a tire through grass or through like a sandy beach, the rolling friction would slow it down right away. Low rolling friction, on the other hand, stuff just keeps on going almost forever and ever and ever. I like this example, what to do with a skate park, a bowling ball, and way too much time in your hands there. Gotta love the gratuitous slow motion right here. But anyways, the reason this ball just keeps on going is because there's almost no friction between it and the ground. That low rolling friction causes it to just keep on going and going and going. And of course, you know there's going to be pins at the end of it, because I wouldn't show you this GIF if there wasn't that kind of payoff there. And strike. Low rolling friction allowed it to just keep on going. This one right here, another example. Go ahead. You know what? Try that at home. Just film yourself so I can watch it. But low rolling friction keeps that ball going there. Here's another one. Don't try that one. You'll probably get kicked out of the bowling alley. But hey, cool image in the meantime. But it keeps going due to low rolling friction. It doesn't slow that bowling ball down. All right, so let's review. These ones right here, people just sliding right there. I have lots of images of things sliding because it's just kind of funny. Here's a car that went off the ditch, and you can see why. That's what the road was like there. Now, these are not examples of sliding friction. These are examples of low sliding friction. If it was high sliding friction, they would all fall as they tried to do that. Oh, here comes that guy. That actually kind of looks fun until that part there, you hit someone's legs. But anyways, that's friction.